and good evening. Welcome to World Today. This is your one-stop show for all that matters from the world perspective and your daily window to the world. Well, I'm Anil Thomas, and on this show tonight, the latest on the vaccine diplomacy and the success story of Vaccine Maitri initiative. Also a look at External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jayashankar's address at the 9th Ministerial Conference of Heart of Asia Istanbul process on Afghanistan today. And we've got much more lined up over the next 1 hour. Remember, this is your show where we cut all the noise, bring you news as it happens. Let's begin with the top headlines. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jayashankar attends the 9th Ministerial Conference of Heart of Asia Istanbul process. Says for a durable peace in Afghanistan, world needs double peace both within and around Afghanistan. India's massive global outreach, Vaccine Maitri, continues in full swing. Made in India vaccine doses reach Paraguay, Niger, Zimbabwe and Fiji. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jayashankar calls the initiative as an expression of support and solidarity. Brazilian president unveils cabinet reshuffle as anger grows over COVID-19 death toll. After replacing Foreign Relations Minister, the president shifts 3 other ministers into new positions. Deaths from COVID-19 surge about 3 lakh. Australia reports 8 new locally acquired COVID-19 cases in Queensland. Authorities in the country warn more cases could emerge as the state scrambles to restrict an outbreak linked to the highly contagious UK variant of COVID-19. A study released by the US Center for Disease Control shows vaccines produced by Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna are highly effective at preventing COVID-19 in real-world conditions. And record goal scorer Sergio Aguero to leave Manchester City at the end of the season after his contract comes to an end. Aguero will be honoured with a statue of him that will be placed at the Manchester City's home stadium. Well, let's begin World Today with the big news. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jayashankar addressed the 9th Ministerial Conference of Heart of Asia Istanbul process on Afghanistan in Dushanbe today. External Affairs Minister said India remains committed to the Afghan peace process.
The continued involvement of foreign fighters in Afghanistan is particularly disturbing. Heart of Asia members and supporting countries should therefore make it a priority to press for an immediate reduction in violence, leading to a comprehensive response. For a durable peace in Afghanistan, what we need is a genuine double peace, that is peace within Afghanistan and peace around Afghanistan. It requires harmonizing the interests of all, both within and around the country. India has been supportive of all the efforts being made to accelerate the dialogue between the Afghan government and the Taliban, including intra-Afghan negotiations.
Well, let's try and understand what exactly is the Heart of Asia or this Istanbul process that's also known as HOA or IP. It's an initiative that's not being done by one country. It's an initiative, especially by the Republic of Afghanistan and the Republic of Turkey. So clearly, this particular initiative is very important. Why is it important? Because it is supported by 14 participating countries of the Heart of Asia region. That's the region in and around Afghanistan. That's not all. 16 supporting countries beyond the region as well support this particular initiative. It doesn't stop there. 12 regional and international organizations are also leading and coordinating this particular process. So it's got a larger ramification when you look at this particular window that's been started or a platform that's been started. It's a platform that's there for promoting regional security, economic and political cooperation centered on Afghanistan in particular. Now, what are the goals, or what are the goals of this particular process? There are three goals of this particular process. First, political consultations, especially when it comes to important issues. Second, implementation of the CBMs, or the confidence building measures. Third and most important, cooperation with regional organizations. That's the most crucial thing of this particular Heart of Asia Istanbul initiative. Let's also take a look at what are the achievements of this particular Heart of Asia Istanbul process that's taken place over this long period of time. Well, this particular deal, this particular project has achieved a great deal in the last 9 years. What has it done? It has demonstrated its ability to bolster consensus on political, security and economic fronts amongst the Heart of Asia Istanbul process. Participation and supporting countries and supporting organizations have also helped it in a large way. Second, an element of political consultations through the ministerial conferences, senior officials meeting and ambassadorial meetings that have been dynamic, inclusive and productive. That's been the big plus if one look at it. Also, the thematic confidence building measures are major areas that offer the potential to address some of the entrenched issues that Afghanistan and the Heart of Asia region faces. So, it's a very crucial platform in that sense. Well, also let's take a look at Heart of Asia. How has it helped? The Istanbul process has achieved a great deal, as I mentioned, in the last 9 years. It's also served as a platform bringing countries, especially with common challenges there in the Heart of Asia together to address, common challenges and realize shared interests. So, clearly something that's got a big perspective purely in terms of how things have moved, and it's working in the right direction. So, the 9th ministerial meeting and External Affairs Minister clearly laying out, the blueprint for the road ahead, especially when it comes to discussions in and around Afghanistan and how the region at large can benefit from this particular platform. Well, let's now shift focus and take a look at Vaccine Maitri, where India is getting a lot of accolades from the world under the Vaccine Maitri initiative of Government of India. Made in India vaccines reached Paraguay on Monday. Paraguay received a shipment of 1 lakh doses of India's indigenously developed co-vaccine. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar tweeted, "Never too far for friendship. Made-in vaccines arrive in Paraguay. India has been supplying coronavirus vaccines to countries around the world under the Vaccine Maitri initiative." Made in India COVID-19 vaccines also reached Zimbabwe on Monday. Dr. S. Jaishankar tweeted the image of a vaccine reaching the African nation and wrote, and I quote, "Zimbabwe receives made in India vaccines, another expression of our African solidarity." Niger too received India-made COVID-19 vaccines under the Vaccine Maitri initiative. The External Affairs Minister tweeted, "Standing with Sahel, made in India vaccines reach Niger." External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in a tweet also informed that an outreach exercise to the Indo-Pacific, the made in India COVID-19 vaccines have reached Fiji. Well, to get a perspective on what exactly does this mean, Vaccine Maitri that India has been extending to almost 82 countries in the world and 664 crore vaccines that India has distributed either commercially or through a grant that India has given. What does this mean for the world? We've got a senior diplomat, Anil Kumar, joining us this evening to give us a perspective on what it helps when it comes to India looking at increasing its footprints. Good evening, sir. First things first,
Good evening.
How do you look at the collaborative effort that India has done, especially when it comes to distributing these vaccines, and how does it benefit India?
It is basically India's effort
Okay.
to have become a part of the humanity, to provide succor to the humanity. Essentially, that is what it is all about. Like, for example, whether we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, or share and care approach,
Okay.
whether it was with regard to medical diplomacy in the beginning, or vaccine diplomacy now, or for that matter, capacity building across the spectrum in our development partner. And there is India has been providing assistance to nearly 150, 160 countries also. And as you mentioned, nearly 82 countries, we have already supplied the vaccines. Now, why are we doing it? I mean, everybody believes that while we have ourselves 1/6 of the world's population to look after, and at the same time, we are still continuing to provide to the world because we believe that there are no boundaries for the pandemic. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, a country like India, which has developed during this pandemic, in my view, one of the most reliable and robust global value supply chains as far as medicines and vaccines are concerned. It is known as the vaccine hub of the world or pharmacy of the world. And therefore, it is discharging its global responsibility. And that is precisely what we have been, or Prime Minister Modi and the Indian government has been trying to hammer into the heads of all the states that we need to work towards the country because 130, 140 countries are not in a position able to afford. So therefore, India has provided a lot of vaccines on the basis of grant. For example, our neighborhood. We have been providing number one neighborhood first policy, and now we have taken from Africa to Americas, from Europe to the Caribbeans. Everywhere we have been providing across the world, in fact, and that is a remarkable feat during this particular pandemic. And I believe that this is something that people look up to India, and they think that India is a country that can stand up when they need it most. So it has become a first provider of relief, basically, in that sense of.
Okay, now when you look at it, put it into perspective, when you look at the importance of India's vaccine diplomacy from a strategic point of view, does it, what's the long-term goodwill that, one looks at, especially with a move that India has made?
Well, of course, I mean, it is natural because when you develop friendships through assistance, I mean, capacity building assistance, when people are there, for example, if in certain countries you have the leaders who have been trained in India, it does help because they get the perspective. If the students are studying in India on various scholarships and they have a good experience, they become your assets in those countries.
Okay.
So it is a normal thing. Likewise, when the countries are struggling to survive and when India is able to provide the vaccines for them right now as a humanitarian gesture, but people remember these things. It is a normal thing. That is why if you see the Brazilian president, he spoke about Indian vaccines as a life-saving drug like Sanjeevani or something like that. So there are so many leaders who have been extremely grateful that India has been able to provide that to meet their immediate needs, whether under Gavi, whether under COVAX, or even now if you see the Quad meeting that was happened, I mean, in the spirit of Quad, that was the statement in which the major thing was about the real takeaway from my point of view was that India was acknowledged as the provider of vaccines to the Indo-Pacific region, in which the Johnson & Johnson or other vaccines from the US will also be manufactured. So it has bridged the dots or divide in many ways, and India has shown the way to the world. So this is a true leadership, in my view, that India has been able to project. And of course, everybody reaps the benefits of the goodwill, and come when you need it, because we need great friendships if you want to play a global or a regional role.
Do you somewhere get the feeling, does it give India, more leverage, or especially over Western countries, where many countries in the West are concerned more about saving their own people? Has it given us a better leverage purely when you look at India and, India's help in saving humanity at large?
Yes, I think so. I mean, because see, most of the Western countries, they may say whatever it is, but at the same time, you have seen the kind of restrictions they have imposed on exports and others to other countries in Africa or elsewhere, or are using it as some kind of a prop. Okay. I think that India's approach has been very, very open and helping to the people so that they compare. And secondly, India is seen as a benign power which is growing, which is there for the good of the world, frankly, in that sense. And as you know, China has lost its credibility. So have the Western countries, many of them, because they are not doing in that sense the kind of assistance they should be providing or coming forward. Instead, they have prioritized their own populations. And I guess because they have had the biggest impact of the whichever way, whether they handled it well or not, but they have been impacted very badly globally. So therefore, they are looking to first assuage their own requirements and thereafter go beyond. So they could not even provide to Canada. In fact, frankly, from the US. So India stood up to provide to the Canadians for that matter. Pakistan, for example.
With this vaccine, Maitri, do you somewhere feel India has pulled off a diplomatic coup, especially, when the world depends on China so much? Is this particular vaccine, Maitri, helped India, at least, elevate itself or pull off a diplomatic coup, especially, with regards to China?
No, I think that India has, China is also doing. I mean, there are only
Exactly.
5 countries that have produced the vaccine, and everybody is trying to do whatever they can. The vaccines are not produced to keep at home. They are used. They have to be used abroad. But many countries are using it as some kind of lever, which India is not doing in that sense directly. But for them, that is the first thing, or to make money, commercialize. That is something that many countries are doing. And I don't think that has been the India's approach in the first place. We are trying to match requirements as much as possible at this stage, because frankly, as you know, that there is the pandemic does not have any borders. It hits everywhere across the world. So the global solidarity is a must, and that is what India has been focusing in all the global platforms, saying that the world must come together, whether it was G20, where Prime Minister Modi spoke to King Salman, and or for that matter in the United Nations or WHO, everywhere. So we have been trying to work that it is a joint responsibility of the world to help the humanity. I mean, that is something. So in the meantime, we are doing our part.
Now we spoke about strategic part of it. Let's now look at the economic part of this particular vaccine, Maitri. Somewhere do you feel, does this make India, a global supply center, with this push that India has done? Does this help India, especially when it comes to projections and perceptions? Does this make India a global, supply center?
Yes, I fully agree with that viewpoint. And I think that in one sense, if you come to think of it, we have been missing in the global value and supply chains as far as production was concerned, manufacturing and other things. But in the healthcare sector, that has emerged as the most primary sector insofar the today's biggest challenge is concerned. I think that India has emerged as I said earlier, as a reliable and robust global value supply chain on which countries can depend on. I mean, that is something like we have seen what happened to the Chinese global value supply chains during the pandemic. Everybody was worried about it, whether they can continue or it is not being used as a sword or something.
Okay.
But therefore, this has provided India a tremendous edge, in my view, as far as its positioning India as the major supplier of pharmaceuticals, or for that matter, vaccines.
Does it also, in a long way, helping India become the pharmacy of the world? This particular move. It already used to exist, but this particular move clearly opens the doors and windows for India to become the pharmacy of the world.
Well, as you know, India is always called pharmacy of the world. I mean, if you go back during when there was a pandemic, when there was AIDS infections and other things, India was the only country that has been providing to all these developing countries the medicine all along. And even during the early days of the pandemic, this COVID-19, India provided to 150 countries, whether it was hydroxychloroquine or for that matter paracetamol, or for providing the personnel or medical health or the equipment and others. So India has been doing that. I mean, so it is known as the pharmacy of the world. But now I think it will become far more. The world will depend much more and look forward to India for providing the leadership in this domain.
Also, when it comes to looking at our own economy, do you consider this particular move helping the larger picture when one looks at helping in reviving our economy too, especially when it comes to the demand increasing, as a result of which more and more supply will be there, and it would help our economy recover in a major way?
Of course, I think that this is there are the health sector is going to remain one of the most primary sectors henceforth if the world has learned any lessons. And if you have an edge in this particular, whether it is through vaccines or the pharmaceuticals, but we need to invest a little more in our R&D to have an edge with other countries. So it will require a continuous investment and reinvestment in our human resource and as well as our research in order to maintain that kind of an edge. And it can definitely today 18-17%, whatever it is, we are exporting medicines roughly $18 billion. So I think that this could become a major plank for our export market and more for developing mutually beneficial joint venture partnerships abroad.
Also looking at this particular, vaccine distribution that India has been carrying out, and the WHO Director General time and again talking about, vaccine manufacturers supplying to rich countries. This move by India, does it give some kind of a moral, moral high standing, especially in the world order?
Well, I think that it is for the people to judge, and people are judging it. Whatever India, despite its own huge requirements, has been providing to the poorer, the more disadvantaged countries, and even to the Western countries, whatever their needs are and where it can provide. So it does give you, in a sense, a moral high. We may not look at it, or we may not project it as a moral high. We consider it as a duty, as the Prime Minister and everybody else says, we consider world as one. So I think it is in that respect, so it's better to have a little bit of a humility in this and help the world overcome this menace.
At a time when vaccine nationalism is becoming the order of the day, America talking about vaccination possible till April 19th to almost the entire, the entire American population. There clearly, this particular step by India, does it disrupt that vaccine nationalism theory that was being created by especially the rich countries?
Well, the problem is that the rich countries may not learn the lesson in that sense of the term, because they are still prioritizing themselves first, and that will continue. But at the same time, they see that India is a country, or some other countries are providing. Plus, we are manufacturing. In India, the Indian vaccine, which have been invented in India, made in India vaccine, which is the Covishield, and we are doing this Sputnik 5 vaccine. The third phase of trials already over. So we are becoming, and then we will be under the Quad arrangement, we'll be doing perhaps J&J 1 billion doses. So I think that they are realizing that India has that capacity and has that competitiveness to deal with it. As far as vaccine nationalism is concerned, this is something we've been against. We have been saying that let us look at the world as one and try to help everybody where we can, rather than just helping ourselves. So those countries are even hoarding or denying access to others, even though they've not been, their logistical systems were not in place and they were not able to use, but they stored. And that is something that has been reported quite widely. And I think that is unhelpful in fighting the pandemic.
So what do you also somewhere get the sense that, what Indian vaccine supplies, can they, cater to the bigger demand, especially the WHO created, the WHO backed COVAX facility that one has been talking about. This gives further impetus to India having a larger role to play in that.
Yeah, I think that this is what, if you see the Quad initiative or the statement, it says that the financial assistance will be provided to India. The Indian company Bharat Biotech wants to expand its manufacturing base. Several other companies have come into the field. And so I think that we'll have to expand the requirements of this, the capacity, manufacturing capacity of various companies, big companies that have the wherewithal to manufacture these vaccines. And I think that that is going to be done, and there will be an international collaboration that might be forthcoming in that regard.
Also, when you look at managing, getting that right balance, especially when it comes to international demand and also managing your domestic commitments, what's the way forward according to you?
Well, the way forward is, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you something that in the beginning, everybody was so skeptic in India that we don't have, number one, you think that you don't have the pandemic here to the extent that it is being reported. Secondly, you are not so sure about the vaccine. So when you start supplying to the rest of the world and the people are looking at it, that yes, everybody else is doing it, so it also generates confidence among the people to come forward and vaccinate themselves. And now, as you know, I think the government will have to rationalize in a way that it meets its domestic demand first, or to the extent possible, and also simultaneously continue to cater to the requirements of the larger global requirements.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate your joining us, taking time out this evening, joining us on World Today. Remember, India's vaccine Maitri, a Sanjeevani that's there for the world, and India now supplying almost to 82 countries the vaccine doses. That's 64 crore vaccines that have been distributed to the world, especially in this fight against the pandemic, where India believes this fight is to save humanity, and India doing its bit to help not only itself but also its neighbors and also 82 countries in the world. Well, let's now shift focus and take a look at updates from COVID-19 from across the world on how the numbers stack purely in terms of COVID infections. 12 crore 83 lakh people worldwide having contracted COVID-19, while more than 10 crore 35 lakh people have recovered from it. From this particular window, that's the only positive number that one looks at when it comes to recoveries. 10 crores 35 lakhs. Total deaths, 28 lakhs 6,000 deaths that have been reported from across the globe. United States remains the worst affected country, both in terms of infections as well as fatalities. In terms of infections, America having over 3 crore 10 lakh cases. The death toll in America stands at over 5 lakh 63,000, followed by Brazil, which is on the number 2 position. Brazil has had over 3 lakh 14,000 deaths that have been lost in the South American nation. So clearly Brazil and United States of America taking that 1 and 2 position when it comes to the death toll due to COVID-19 from across the world. Well, the World Health Organization, that's WHO, has said that the long-awaited report into the origins of the new COVID-19 following a mission to China where the virus first emerged will be released publicly today, but that further study is required. Speaking at a news conference, WHO Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus said that the global funding and cooperation is crucial if there is going to be fair access to COVID-19 vaccines for everyone.
WHO has received the full mission report over the weekend on the origins of the SARS-CoV-2 virus from the team that visited Wuhan earlier this year. The report, of course, was sent under embargo. It's not public yet, under embargo to member states based on their request, because we will have a mission briefing tomorrow with member states. But as I have said, all hypotheses are on the table and warrant complete and further studies from what I have seen so far. Of course, I will have more to say following further review and understanding of the report, but for now, all hypotheses will be on the table and will need further study.
Well, US President Joe Biden has said on Monday that 90% of all adults in the United States will be eligible for the COVID-19 vaccination by April 19th.
At least 90% of all adults in this country will be eligible to be vaccinated by April the 19th, just 3 weeks from now, because we have the vaccines.
Well, Biden also warned about the potential of an upsurge in infections. Biden termed behavior of a score of college students on spring vacation in Miami reckless and said it indicated more infections will be reported in the days ahead. He also asked local leaders to reinstate mask mandates.
Sadly, some of the reckless behavior we've seen on television over the past few weeks means that more new cases are to come in the weeks ahead. With vaccines, there's hope, which is a very good thing, to state the obvious. But people are letting up on precautions, which is a very bad thing. Look, to this point, cases have fallen 2/3 since I took office. Deaths have also fallen 2/3. But now cases are going back up. In some states, deaths are as well. You know, we're giving up hard-fought, hard-won gains. And as much as we're doing, America, it's time to do even more. All of us have to do our part, every one of us.
Well, Joe Biden clearly saying everyone has to do his part and warning of a possible upsurge in COVID cases in the United States. So clearly, April 19th is the deadline for 90% of all Americans to get their vaccination, but clearly setting the tone, that's 3-week timeline for America, especially 90% of America to be vaccinated. Well, shifting focus to Europe, where British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday said he hoped that England would not need to go into another lockdown if the people of the country abide by the rules and coronavirus vaccines continue to be effective. The stay-at-home lockdown order ended on Monday.
I'm hopeful I think that I don't see anything in the data right now that would cause us to deviate from the roadmap. But we've got to remain humble in the face of nature, and we've got to be prepared to do whatever it takes to protect the British public.
Well, Australia on Tuesday reported 8 new locally acquired COVID-19 cases in Queensland. Authorities in the country have warned more cases could emerge as the state scramble to restrict an outbreak linked to the highly contagious UK variant of COVID-19. The new cases took the total in the latest outbreak to 15 so far, a day after the state announced a 3-day lockdown in Brisbane.
I can report that we have 10 new cases overnight. Now, 8 of these are community acquired cases, 6 are close contacts of confirmed cases, and 2 are currently under investigation, but we believe that they are also linked to the 2 people. So 2 are also overseas acquired, and once again coming via Papua New Guinea. So we now have 78 active cases of COVID in our hospitals.
Meanwhile, a study released on Monday by the US Center for Disease Control shows vaccines produced by Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna are highly effective at preventing COVID-19 in real-world conditions. The study was conducted among nearly 4,000 healthcare workers, first responders and other essential workers in 6 states between December 14th and March 13th. The results showed the risk of infections was reduced by 80% after the first dose and 90% after 2 doses. Speaking during a White House COVID-19 response team briefing, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky said that the study showed the 2 vaccines can be effective not only in symptomatic infections but asymptomatic infections as well. She called it tremendously encouraging. Well, back to our neighbors. Pakistan's president on Monday tested positive for COVID-19 2 weeks after receiving his first dose of an unnamed vaccine. Alvi on Twitter said that antibodies started developing after second dose, but that was due in a week. Pakistan's First Lady Samina Alvi said Arif Alvi had mild symptoms and was in good spirits. Later on Monday, Pakistan's Defence Minister Pervez Khattak also said that he had tested positive. About a week ago, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan also said he tested positive after he received his first dose. Well, heading to news and updates from Myanmar, starting first up, as many as 2,000 refugees fleeing Myanmar to Thailand had been pushed back despite the ongoing aerial bombardment. 2 activist groups have confirmed this. However, Thai authorities said that the army was taking care of them on the border. Video clearly shows that villagers on Sunday carrying their belongings boarding boats under the watch of Thai officials. The boat was taken by a local Karen villager to Thailand but was forced to return to Myanmar on Monday. Well, a group of UN human rights experts have said it is deeply concerned about allegations regarding China's treatment of its Muslim Uyghur minority. The working group on business and human rights said they have received information that connected more than 150 Chinese and foreign domiciled companies to serious allegations of human rights abuses against workers from the minority group. The group said many businesses and factories implicated in the abuse practices are reportedly operating as part of the supply chains of various well-known global brands. Uyghur workers have reportedly been subjected to exploitative working and abusive living conditions, according to sources, and hundreds of thousands allegedly have been held in re-education facilities. Well, let's now also take a look at what's making headlines across the globe in News at a Glance.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro on Monday unveiled the biggest cabinet reshuffle as his administration comes under intense pressure with COVID-19 raging out of control in the country. Bolsonaro announced the exit of Foreign Minister Ernesto Araújo after Congress demanded the diplomat's ouster, blaming him for scuppering vaccine supply deals. Bolsonaro also changed his defense and justice ministers, chief of staff, and 2 more top government officials. Brazil has so far reported more than 1,25 lakh COVID cases. The deadly virus has claimed over 3,14,000 lives in the country. According to officials in South Korea, Japan and the United States, North Korea launched at least 2 projectiles suspected to be ballistic missiles. North Korea's ballistic missiles are banned under the United Nations Security Council resolutions. Nepal has ordered schools to close for 4 days after air pollution climbed to hazardous levels, forcing millions of students to stay home across the country. Education Ministry spokesperson said about 8 million students have been affected by the closures. The 24-hour average level of PM 2.5 fine particulate matter that can reach deep into the lungs was 214 micrograms per cubic meter in the upscale area of Bhaisepati in Kathmandu on Sunday. Officials at Nepal's only international airport in Kathmandu said poor visibility, which was down to 1,000 meters on Monday, widely disrupted flights. South Korea's K-pop sensation BTS released a statement on Tuesday saying they had experienced racism because they were Asian and called for an end to anti-Asian discrimination amid a rise in reported incidents. Documented incidents of anti-Asian violence in the United States have shot up alarmingly since the first confirmed case of COVID-19 was reported in China more than a year ago. This had prompted demonstrations and comments from leaders such as US President Joe Biden. The United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, has said that it has received a growing number of reports in recent months suggesting asylum seekers may have been pushed back to Turkey at sea or immediately after reaching the Greek soil or left adrift at sea. Greek Migration Minister Notis Mitarachi said Greece strongly denied that the Coast Guard has ever been involved in pushbacks and the country adhered to European and international law. Turkey has repeatedly accused Greek border authorities of violating human rights by abusing and harassing migrant boats in the Aegean Sea, charges that Athens has denied. Islamic State has taken the responsibility of the latest attack in Mozambique. ISIS in a statement said that its fighters had carried out an attack on the northern Mozambique town of Palma, where dozens were killed, thousands displaced, and some remain missing. Insurgents hit the town adjacent to gas projects worth $60 billion with a 3-pronged attack on Wednesday. Fighting continued on Monday, according to a security source directly involved in efforts to secure the town. The government confirmed on Sunday that dozens of people had died, including 7, when their convoy of cars was ambushed during an escape attempt. Islamic State claimed the attack via its Amaq news agency, saying its fighters had taken control of the town after days of clashes with the security forces. They had killed at least 55 people, including a number of soldiers, destroyed and taken control of buildings, including factories and banks, and seized vehicles. World Today Desk, DD India.
Well, here's your daily fix of offbeat, funny and unique stories in our segment Beyond Headline.
A 74-year-old pensioner, Vladimir Sidakov from Russia's Ekaterinburg, is on his way to cover himself in tattoos from top to toe. A fan of poetry and painting, Sidakov wears incredibly crafted costumes. Sidakov has so far brought the count of his tattoos to 60 and does not plan to stop. His skin is covered with a mixture of cartoons, demons, mythical animals, and poetry lines. Sidakov also runs a blog which is full of funny videos in which he usually dances, sings, dares people for boxing, or takes his goat for a tram ride. A zoological park in western France has recently welcomed a baby red howler monkey as a result of growing conservation efforts for threatened species. The baby monkey, which was born on 16th of February at Planet Sauvage Zoo, has been tentatively named Shongo. Currently, the top choice in an online poll the park has launched upon the young male's birth. The International Union for Conservation of Nature last week identified the red howler monkey in its red list of threatened species. A restored 15th century Flemish masterpiece that has been painted over, partly stolen and hidden by the Nazis, gained new bulletproof glass housing in Belgium this week, part of a €30 million revamp for visitors. Completed in 1432 by brothers John and Hubert van Eyck, the painting, named Adoration of the Mystic Lamb, is an altarpiece of 12 detailed panels that is widely considered one of the most important pieces of early Renaissance art. Visitors will have to pass through the crypt before viewing the panels, kept inside an adaptive glass case. Augmented reality glasses and tablets will relate the panel's 600-year history. The famous cherry blossom trees of Washington, D.C. have reached full bloom, drawing crowds to marvel at their white and pink flowers. The trails remained open on Monday despite warnings from the National Park Service that access would be shut down if crowds become unmanageable. The warnings may have had an effect since crowds showed up but did not pack the paths as they had in previous years. Peak bloom usually lasts 4 to 7 days and was first reached last week. Thousands of visitors have been drawn to the Icelantic volcano, which erupted on March 19th as it continues to spew out lava. Since the eruption started, people have hiked to the site on the Reykjanes Peninsula, some 30 kilometers southwest of the capital, hoping to be awed by the rare lava fountains. Since the initial eruption, lava has steadily seeped out of the volcano in a flow strong enough to ensure the molten rock does not solidify and close the fissure. In United Kingdom, swimmers flocked to the outdoor pools as England's stay-at-home lockdown order ended. People are now allowed to meet up outside in group of 6 for the first time in nearly 3 months, though Prime Minister Boris Johnson urged caution due to rising coronavirus cases across Europe. Swimmers at an open-air pool in southeast London said they were extremely happy to once again be able to do something they love. A grandmother in the United States is happy that she can now hug her grandchildren again as she prepared to receive the second dose of a COVID-19 vaccination. The caregiver of the 83-year-old Alzheimer's patient called it a blessing and said she will be able to hug her grandchildren now. Families are happy that they will be able to sit together for the Passover holiday meal after being long separated by COVID-19. With more than 42% of all American seniors already fully inoculated against COVID-19, Jewish grandparents first are happy that they will be able to embrace loved ones around the Seder table during the week-long celebration that began last week. Passover is a Jewish spring holiday to commemorate the biblical story of the exodus of Hebrews from Egyptian slavery, in which God instructed Jews to mark their doors so the angel of death would pass over them. South Africa's all-female anti-poaching unit known as the Black Mambas now have new allies in their fight to keep the animals of Balulay Nature Reserve safe. The all-female anti-poaching unit called Black Mambas has been protecting South Africa's wildlife since 2013. Now they have a new allies, tens of thousands of virtual rangers worldwide to keep an eye on the animals via camera phone. Stage costumes worn by pop group Destiny's Child at the height of their fame are hitting the auction block in June, along with gowns belonging to Lady Gaga, Whitney Houston and Cher. Julian's auctions in selling more than 100 lots of costumes owned and used by Destiny's Child members Beyonce, Kelly Rowland and Michelle Williams during the late 1990s and early 2000s. The dozens of costumes, most of which were designed by Beyonce's mother Tina Knowles Lawson, are expected to fetch between $600 and $10,000 each at the 3-day auction in Beverly Hills on June 11th to 13th. Other items up for sale in June include an Eclair Versace gold gossamer gown worn by the late Whitney Houston for a performance in Paris in July 1998, and the net, bodysuit and motorcycle jacket outfit worn by Cher in the 1989 music video for If I Could Turn Back Time that last sold at auction 5 years ago for $60,000. World Today Desk, DD India.
Well, moving to some sports stories now, starting first up with New Zealand producing a thrilling last ball victory to beat Australia by 4 wickets and level the 3-match 2020 series at 1-1. Needing 3 from the final ball of the match in the chase of 130, Maddie Green underedged Nicolas Carey for 4 to secure a fine win. Opener Francis McKay's 46 from 39 had paved the way for White Ferns, who were missing captain Sophie Devine through illness. Australia had earlier posted 129 for 4. Despite an unbeaten 61 from Bet Mooney, which included 6 fours, Australia struggled to accelerate in the middle overs, and all-rounder McKay claimed 2 for 20 with a rough spin, while Jess Kerr dismissed dangerous opener Alyssa Healy for just 4. Despite struggling with a calf injury, McKay hit 3 fours and 2 sixes to get New Zealand off to a strong start. Australia hit back through Megan Scoot, who dismissed Brooke Halliday and Kerr in consecutive deliveries, but New Zealand managed to take their target down to 9 from the final 6 deliveries. Nicolas Carey's final over Yorkers took the game down to the final ball, with New Zealand's bench celebrating after Green underedged rolled to the boundary line. The final game of the series will take place on Thursday in Auckland. Well, Thisara Pereira became the first Sri Lankan to hit 6 sixes in an over in any form of professional cricket on Sunday. En route to his unbeaten 13-ball 52, he also smashed the second fastest half-century in List A cricket for Army Sports Cricket Club in the SLC Major Clubs Tournament. The record for fastest 50 is held by former Sri Lankan all-rounder Kushalaya Weeraratne, who smashed a 12-ball half-century for Ragana Cricket Club against Kurungele Youth Cricket Club in November 2005. Pereira is the second cricketer after West Indies T20 captain Kieron Pollard to achieve this feat in 2021. Pereira is part of a small list of 9 cricketers to have achieved this feat in professional cricket after Garfield Sobers, Ravi Shastri, Herschel Gibbs, Yuvraj Singh, Ross Whiteley, Hazratullah Zazai, Leo Carter and Kieron Pollard. Well, Portugal coach Fernando Santos has said that captain Cristiano Ronaldo reacted how almost anyone would have when he stormed off the pitch after his stoppage time effort against Serbia was not allowed in Saturday's World Cup qualifier in Belgrade. Santos said Ronaldo had admitted his outburst was not acceptable and made it clear that the star player will retain the captain's band as Portugal prepare to face Luxembourg tonight. Well, Ronaldo was left fuming and got booked for dissent after his shot in Saturday's 2-2 draw was cleared by Stefan Mitrovic after the ball had crossed the line as shown by television replays. With no video assistant referee in place to review the incident, match officials waved play on and a livid Ronaldo left the pitch seconds before the final. He also threw away the captain's armband while heading towards the tunnel. Dutch referee Danny McKelly has apologized for not allowing the goal, and Ronaldo too apologized for his reaction.
O Cristiano foi uma atitude daquelas que qualquer em momentos alguns da nossa vida, se calhar vamos tomar. E ele foi o primeiro a reconhecer que se calhar não o devia ter feito. Bem, eu acho que isto é mais do que suficiente. Agora, capitão vai ser de certeza. Mas quando consegues fazer um golo, aos 94 golo, limpinho, clarinho, e que não é válido, obviamente, quando tu vens para um jogo com firme convicção que podes ganhar os 3 pontos e queres ganhar os 3 pontos, e eles te são, não vou dizer o adjetivo, mas te são, obviamente que há uma certa frustração. Quer dizer, nesses momentos imediatos não se fala de outra coisa, não é? Fala-se disso, fala-se do que aconteceu.
Well, record goal scorer Sergio Aguero will leave Manchester City at the end of the season. The 32-year-old striker's contract expires at the end of the season and he has been told it will not be renewed. The Argentinian, who signed from Atletico Madrid in 2011, has scored 257 goals in 384 appearances for the club. He will be honoured by a statue at the Etihad Stadium alongside title-winning captain Vincent Kompany and playmaker David Silva, who left the club in 2019 and 20 respectively. The trio played leading roles in City's renaissance, with Aguero famously scoring the injury-time winner against QPR in 2012, which clinched the club's first English title in 44 years. Since then, the striker has helped City win 3 more Premier League titles, 1 FA Cup and 5 League Cups. Well, there's tennis happening across the world. Let's take a quick look at Tennis Wrap.
Japanese second seed Naomi Osaka extended her winning streak to a 23rd match as she moved into the Miami Open quarterfinals for the first time. Osaka won 6-3, 6-3 against Belgium's 16th seed Elise Mertens. Osaka will face Greek 23rd seed Maria Sakkari or American 29th seed Jessica Pegula next. Australian world number 1 Ashley Barty also advanced by beating 14th seed Victoria Azarenka of Belarus. Barty won 6-1, 1-6, 6-2 in a gripping contest with the 2020 US Open finalist. Barty, playing in an overseas tournament for the first time in more than a year because of the coronavirus pandemic, continues her title defense against Belarusian 7th seed Aryna Sabalenka. Greek second seed Stefanos Tsitsipas defeated Japanese 28th seed Kei Nishikori 6-3, 3-6, 6-1 after an hour and 56 minutes to reach the last 16 of the Miami Open. Tsitsipas will next face Italian 24th seed Lorenzo Sonego, who dispatched Colombian Daniel Galan 7-6, 6-3. Russian 4th seed Andrei Rublev routed Hungarian 29th seed Martin Fucsovics 6-2, 6-1 to reach the 4th round. The 23-year-old will next face Croatia's 32-year-old Marin Cilic, who beat Italy's 19-year-old Lorenzo Musetti 6-3, 6-4. The 12th-seeded Raonic from Thornhill, Ontario, reached the 4th round of the ATP Masters 1000 event for the 5th time in 10 appearances with a 6-4, 7-5 win over number 20 seed Hugo Humbert of France. Argentine Diego Schwartzman cruised into the 4th round of the Miami Open with a 6-1, 6-4 victory over France's Adrian Manarino. Schwartzman converted 2 of 5 breakpoint opportunities while the Frenchman failed to create a chance for himself. Schwartzman advances to the round of 16 for the first time in Miami, where he will face Sebastian Korda of the United States. Poland's Herbert Hurkacz got revenge on Denis Shapovalov with a 6-3, 7-6 win over the Canadian number 6 seed just 2 weeks after Shapovalov beat him in Dubai. Hurkacz faces Milos Raonic, also from Canada, in round 4.
Well, after a look at that sporting, especially tennis roundup, it's time now to take a jog down memory lane and take a look at all the important events from history on this very day, 30th of March.
On 30th March 1796, German mathematician Carl Friedrich Gauss discovered the construction of heptadecigon. He who was a child prodigy is sometimes referred to as the Prince of Mathematicians and the greatest mathematician since antiquity. On this day in 1842, American surgeon Dr. Crawford Williamson Long for the first time used ether anesthesia in an operation. During the surgery, the physician removed a tumor from the neck of a man. It was on this day in 1856, Russia signed the Treaty of Paris that ended the Crimean War. The treaty was inked between Russia on the one side and France, Great Britain, Sardinia, Piedmont and Turkey on the other. On 30th March 1867, the United States reached an agreement to purchase Alaska from Russia. The treaty with Russia was negotiated and signed by Secretary of State William Seward and Russian Minister to the United States Edward de Stuckel. In the year 1945, on this day, the Soviet Union invaded Austria during the Second World War. On this day in 1953, Albert Einstein announced revised unified field theory. It was on this day in the year 1954, the Yonge Street subway line opened in Toronto. It is the first subway in Canada. On 30th March 1981, The 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, was shot and seriously injured outside a Washington, D.C. hotel by John W. Hinckley Jr. White House News Secretary James Brady, a Secret Service agent, and a District of Columbia police officer were also injured in the incident. On this day in 1982, Space Shuttle Columbia completed its third and longest test flight after 8 days in space. It was on this day in the year 2020, International Olympic Committee postponed the 2020 Summer Olympic Games due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Olympic Games, Tokyo 2020, will now be held from 23rd July to 8th August 2021. The committee also agreed on new dates for the Paralympic Games, which will take place from 24th August to 5th September 2021.
Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of news. But remember, we're leaving you what in the image that's going to be a lasting image. This particular image that we have picked on World Today, this 30th of March, is images of Holi being celebrated not in India, but at the Indian Embassy in Beijing, where diplomats from various countries, members from multilateral organizations, Chinese friends from different walks of life, and foreign media joined in the Holi celebrations at the Indian Embassy in Beijing. They celebrated the joy of togetherness at the Festival of Colors. Take a look, enjoy, have a safe and wonderful evening ahead. Bye-bye.